Joining me now is Nancy Pelosi's former Chief of Staff, John Lawrence. John, great to see you. Gosh, a day is a very long time in politics at the moment in the United States. Kamala Harris has certainly come out all guns blazing. She's seen grassroots donations around $100 million. She's seen a spike in the polls. Is this just an early sugar hit, or can she maintain it, do you think?
Well, from what I'm hearing, there's very, very strong contributing coming in, not just to the official campaign, but to outside organizations that will support her and Democratic candidates. We're hearing a lot of information right now about volunteers who are flooding into Democratic offices in states to join in get out the vote operations and helping to get people registered. We're seeing some of the big Democratic organizations, the AFL-CIO, the Congressional Black Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, Progressive Caucus, everyone falling into line. And I think there's a real genuine sense of enthusiasm around the vice president as the new presidential candidate for the Democratic Party.
Why did the Democrats wait so long, John?
For her to
replace Biden, yeah. I mean, there has been concerns for Biden's capacity for quite some time. There seemed to be a big resistance. They were unsure whether Kamala Harris was actually electable.
I don't think that was so much the question as whether or not President Biden was going to make a decision to withdraw from the race. And there, I think that there was a consensus, certainly among people at high echelons of Democratic politics, that you were going to have to give him some time to go through that process in his own mind to make that evaluation as to where the polling was, where the money was going to be, and where the politics were going to be, and allow, as my former boss, Speaker Pelosi, was communicating the sense of anxiety that there was among elected officials. That was going to take a few weeks to do. But what we've seen coming out of that is this enormous enthusiasm and consensus build behind the vice president instantaneously. And that's really, going forward, that's going to be much more important than whether it took 1 week or 2 weeks to get to that point.
Yeah, I think the momentum has been quite incredible to see this spike for Kamala Harris in support. And as I say, it could just be a sugar hit, and she's got to maintain that for a couple of months yet. But when you're looking at the 6 or 7 swing states here, where the election will be won and lost, I've always thought it will probably be most difficult, even with Joe Biden as his opponent, most difficult for Donald Trump to win perhaps Pennsylvania, even Nevada. Can you give us some idea how Kamala Harris changes the game in those states?
Well, the most important issue for Democrats is there are going to be 2. One is mobilizing Democrats, and there had been some question as to whether or not key constituencies, African-American voters, women voters, especially young voters, were motivated to come out for Biden. And we are seeing across the board high levels of enthusiasm with all those groups. So that's going to be helpful. The other is independent voters. And what we are seeing in now the focus going back onto the Trump policies is his extreme positions on things like women's right to choose, on opposition to dealing with climate change, opposition to dealing with gun control policy, a failure to deal with the border policies. We're still waiting for Mexico to pay for the border. So for the border wall. So I think this change and this enthusiasm allows Democrats now to focus on these consensus issues where 70% of American voters and high percentages of independent voters are supportive of Democratic positions. And I think that's one of the reasons people are getting very optimistic.
Yeah, interesting. So you're saying under Joe Biden, because you have non-compulsory voting, perhaps getting Democrats out to vote in some of those swing states could have been difficult, whereas Kamala Harris will re-energise them perhaps. And there's those cohort of voters, particularly on women's rights, that will be motivated. I'm already seeing, John, TikTok exploding with Kamala Harris's, pantsuits and dancing and some of her one-liners. She seems to, early days still, really be appealing to those younger voters in particular.
Oh, I think that's true. I teach young students, I teach college level students, and there was no question that there was some antipathy about President Biden to some extent around age issues. And what we're seeing with Vice President Harris, when you see her out dancing with young voters and with students, that's a lot different than young people seeing Joe Biden very tentatively and cautiously walking down the stairs. So there's a whole different vibe going on, I think, with young voters, with the vice president now being the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, I agree. The vibe, perhaps not visible to all of us that aren't of the TikTok generation, but there is certainly a bit of momentum on social media. John, pleasure to see you.